Whatever was coming, he was ready.
Anything out of the ordinary on your shift?
Hatfield asked, looking at Hosey while threading a cleaning cloth through the rifle barrel.
Spotted a couple of dogs rummaging through trash.
Hosey replied, flipping through the pages of their observation book.
And the bakery's smokestack started puffing around 0300, right on schedule.
Closing the rifle's bolt, Hatfield directed his attention to his range card, a detailed sketch marked with distances, azimuths, and descriptions of key features within his sector. It was the terrain of responsibility, a parchment on which the safety of an entire neighborhood was inscribed. His eyes flickered over the notes he'd written over the last 3 days. Number codes for houses, angles to street corners, a cipher of sorts known only to him and Hosey. The details were minute but crucial. The tree by the mosque's eastern gate was 230 meters away. The green door of the second house down the alley was an ideal spot for concealment. The rusted water tower offered a broad view, but made for an exposed sniper's perch. It was knowledge etched both on paper and in memory, a constant reminder that vigilance had layers. Lifting the Mark 12, Hatfield settled it onto the makeshift sandbag rest and peered through the scope. At this vantage point, the world compressed into a series of focal planes. The range card was now a live theater. It was as though he had stepped into his own annotations, a participant observer in a story yet unwritten. Slowly he began scanning his sector, each sweep a seamless panorama stitched together in his mind's eye. Every window, door, and alley were a scene to be considered, a place where the drama of life and death could unfold in mere seconds. This initial scan was not just about surveillance. It was an act of mental calibration, a setting of the internal compass. Hatfield's finger brushed against the scope's adjustment dial, minutely altering the optics to the noted calculations. The image before him sharpened. Each milliradian line in the scope was now perfectly aligned with the landmarks he had studied. Focus became his singular state of being, a lens through which every sensation, every rustle of the wind, every whiff of burning oil, was funneled. He was not just a passive observer. He was an integral component of this ecosystem of walls and shadows. And like any seasoned naturalist, he knew that understanding the habitat was key to predicting the behavior of its denizens. It was in this state of heightened awareness that Hatfield continued his vigil. With each heartbeat, he seemed to draw closer to the subtle rhythms of the environment, a complex dance of light and darkness, silence and sound, movement and stasis. This was his world for the next few hours, a nexus of focus and anticipation. As Hatfield's eyes continued their disciplined dance across the landscape, he was well aware that the serenity was but a veneer. Underneath lay an ocean of potentialities, each ebb and flow signaling the mysteries of the night. But for now, it was the quiet that held sway, a fragile truce brokered by a Marine and his rifle, upheld by a sketch on a piece of paper, and a readiness in his soul. Hatfield was tracing the grid lines of his scope when a flicker of light caught his attention. A window, about 300 meters away in an unassuming building, was suddenly illuminated. It was a brief, spectral appearance that swiftly faded, but the light didn't match the pattern of scheduled activities they'd observed over the past days. The sensation was immediate unease sewed into the fabric of his nerves. The light could be innocuous, perhaps a resident finding their way in the dark. But years of training and instinct whispered otherwise. Hatfield felt an odd shiver crawl down his spine, an unshakable sense of intrigue muddled with foreboding. His finger twitched near the radio handset, contemplating whether to report the observation. Just as he was about to grab it, the device came to life with a static buzz.
Bravo team, this is Captain Gracek. Sit rep.
The voice boomed, laced with a touch of static that belied the night's clarity.
Sir, this is Pig Thief. All quiet, over.
Hatfield responded, momentarily relieved to hear a familiar voice, but still distracted by the oddity of the illuminated window.
Copy that. Keep your eyes peeled. Intel suggests heightened activity in your sector. Over.
Roger that, sir. Out.
Hatfield returned the handset to its position and refocused on the scope, adjusting the optics to get a clearer view of the building with the suspicious light. A return to vigilance was paramount, especially given the captain's warning. As he scanned the area, a movement caught his eye, a figure emerging from the building window, clutching something metallic. The form navigated through the shadows with a fluid yet deliberate grace, like a predator stalking its prey. The sinking feeling that had earlier stirred within Hatfield now submerged him entirely. He shot a laser azimuth, 327 meters. Hatfield adjusted the windage and elevation in the rifle on the figure. Through the crosshairs, he could clearly see an Iraqi man raising a weapon, its barrel glinting ominously in the night.
Bravo Actual, Bravo Actual. This is Pig Thief. 6 o'clock male with an AK-47 about 50 meters from you. Hostile, over.
The radio crackled and Hatfield knew his transmission didn't go through. "Damn it!" Hatfield yelled as he slammed his fist on the radio.
Take the shot, Bubba.
Hosey said. In that split second, time seemed to dilate. Hatfield's training kicked in with clockwork precision, each protocol clicking into place like the gears of an intricate machine. The familiar sensation of adrenaline surged through him, anchoring his focus, honing his senses. Gently exhaling, Hatfield aligned the crosshairs on the man's center mass. His finger applied pressure on the trigger, a controlled squeeze that set off a chain of events beyond his immediate control. The Mark 12 barked, a sudden thunderclap in the still night. As he observed the scene unfold through his scope, the Iraqi man collapsed from a bullet that penetrated his chest, his weapon falling from his grasp. Hatfield felt a strange blend of relief and dread, a conflict of duty and humanity that settled like a dense fog over his consciousness.
Good eye,
Hosey remarked, scribbling in the logbook. As Hatfield began to readjust his scope, his thoughts returned to the mysterious light. Had it been a signal, or just a coincidence? The questions circled in his mind like vultures over carrion. Hatfield knew that the thin line between life and death in this urban jungle was often drawn by such uncertainties. And so, amid the ever-complicating layers of questions and responsibilities, Hatfield returned to his vigil. But somewhere within him, lodged like a splinter in his soul, was the unshakable realization that tonight was a pivot. Whether toward greater understanding or deeper ambiguity, only time would tell. Hatfield grabbed the radio handset again, intent on reporting the recent development to Captain Gracek. He pressed the button, his thumb sinking into the device with a weight far exceeding its physical mass. Bravo Actual, this is Pig Thief. Sit rep, threat neutralized at coordinates. His voice trailed off as the radio crackled with static. Then he saw it, a movement in the building's shadow. The same man, now back on his feet and cradling his rifle, seemed to have returned as if he'd been unharmed by the earlier shot. But Hatfield could see the blood still pouring from his chest wound. His presence felt like a spectral defiance, raising a swarm of questions that buzzed loudly in Hatfield's mind.